Israel's security cabinet has backed a plan to take over Gaza City in another escalation of the war with Hamas. Ahead of the meeting, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel wanted to seize control of the Gaza Strip, but did not want, quote, to keep it. Thousands of Israelis have rallied in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, calling for an end to the war. Among them, families of the 50 hostages still being held by Hamas, who chained themselves up outside Netanyahu's office. They fear any escalation of the war would further endanger their loved ones. Speaking on the Fox News Channel's Bill Hemmer show, Benjamin Netanyahu outlined his plans for Gaza.
We intend to, in order to assure our security, remove Hamas there, enable the population to be free of Gaza, and to pass it to civilian governance. That is not Hamas and not anyone advocating the destruction of Israel. That's what we want to do. We want to liberate ourselves and liberate the people of Gaza from the awful terror of Hamas.
All right, we can cross straight to Jerusalem and speak to DW's Emily Gordin. Emily, tell us more about Netanyahu's plan to occupy Gaza City, a move that, as we're hearing, has now been approved by Israel's security cabinet.
Well, the plan essentially means that tens of thousands of Palestinians will have to leave their homes as a result of this plan. It will lead to mass displacement, which is already a regular occurrence in the Gaza Strip over the course of this war. It will also disrupt efforts to deliver much-needed humanitarian aid to the areas in the north. Gaza is a territory where experts have been warning that famine is unfolding as we speak. It will also likely lead to more devastation as soon as the IDF launches its ground operation in Gaza City. All of this despite warnings even from the IDF itself that this could endanger the lives of the remaining living hostages in Gaza, some of which could be held in Gaza City itself. The plan does seem to fall short of what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in that interview on Fox News, where he outlined his intention to fully occupy Gaza. Although that doesn't mean that it won't happen, it could also mean that it will happen at a later stage. The goal, according to the government, is to essentially achieve a decisive victory over Hamas, to eliminate Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The plan also envisions humanitarian aid to be delivered, quote, outside of combat zones, although we have seen over the course of this war that this is quite difficult and hasn't always been happening. Now, of course, this operation will not happen overnight. This plan will not unfold overnight. The IDF will take time. It will take days, if not weeks, to call up reservist forces, to carry out troop deployment for a push into Gaza City, and also allow for the residents in Gaza City to move. Now, experts in Israel certainly believe that this could be a way to pressure Hamas into making some sort of concessions in negotiations to release the hostages and to potentially come to an end to this war. These negotiations, however, so far have stalled.
You mentioned the hostages, Emily. 50 are reportedly still being held in Gaza. Their families have been protesting for their release. What are we hearing from their families at the moment? I mean, how are they coping with what's happening?
Well, the families of the remaining living hostages and also of the deceased hostages are extremely worried. They are extremely frustrated. They are anxious. They want to see their loved ones back. Many of them were protesting last night outside a cabinet session. They put out a statement saying that, quote, escalating the fighting is a death sentence and immediate disappearance for our loved ones. Look us in the eye when you choose to sacrifice them. This is the time to put a comprehensive deal on the table that will bring all back together, all 50 hostages. This comes at a time when dissent against the government's plans to expand the war has been growing louder. We saw earlier this week dozens, hundreds of Israeli artists putting out a statement calling for an end to the war. Prior to that, we had 600 former military and security officials in Israel write a letter to US President Donald Trump to pressure Israel into ending the war. But so far, these calls have gone largely unheard in the Israeli government.
Yeah, let's have a look at that growing opposition in Israel to any expansion of the war in Gaza. As you said, Emily, a variety of prominent figures are making their voices heard. I know that you were one of those demonstrations. So let's take a look at your report. I'll come right back to you after that.
A group of Israeli anti-war protesters gather near the Erez crossing north of Gaza on Wednesday evening. Some are distributing signs showing dead Palestinian children, something that has become more common at demonstrations across Israel.
Because they are children and they are dying, and we are responsible for that.
This protest was organised by the Arab-Israeli Standing Together movement, which advocates peace and equality. They have been at the forefront of Israel's anti-war protests.
What we need is real peace, and that can happen not by occupying Gaza, but by leaving Gaza, getting out of Gaza, letting humanitarian aid get in.
On the same evening, hostage families rally in Tel Aviv. They're calling for an end to the war with a deal to bring their loved ones back. Several protesters tried to push open the gates to the military headquarters, but were blocked by police. Earlier this week, some of Israel's most venerable military and intelligence leaders wrote an open letter to US President Donald Trump to pressure Israel into ending the war. In it, they said, "It is our professional judgment that Hamas no longer poses a strategic threat to Israel." Among them, Matan Vilnei, former deputy head of the IDF, who himself once commanded Israeli forces in Gaza.
I know Hamas, and I know what is the meaning of fighting terror, and I know Gaza. As a force, they return back to be a terror group. In October, they were a terror army. It's not the same. It's absolutely different. They had battalions, companies, platoons, a chain of command, logistic, idea, how to do it, large numbers, not anymore.
We call on those setting and executing these
Other prominent figures have joined calls to end the war. Hundreds of artists, including musicians, writers and actors, signed a petition titled "Stop the Horror in Gaza." They too want to see the hostages returned and an end to the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza. With the latter, they're highlighting an issue that, until now, hasn't gotten much mainstream coverage in Israel. And they faced a massive backlash, like this protest here. And Israel's Prime Minister himself shows no sign of bowing to their demands either.
Emily, the Israeli military appears to be divided about the government's plan to take control of Gaza City. You mentioned that in your report. The military chief openly criticised the expansion plans ahead of this decision. Can you talk to us more about that?
That's right. Eyal Zamir, the head of the IDF, the head of the Israel Defense Forces, he said in the past that plans to reoccupy Gaza or to fully occupy Gaza would essentially, quote, trap the IDF in what would essentially become a forever war in Gaza, and that without a clear political, diplomatic solution on the horizon. He's also said that these plans risk the lives of the hostages, because Hamas could deliver on its threat to essentially kill hostages as the IDF approaches, as Hamas has done in the past. We saw that last year when 6 hostages were killed in Rafah. As the IDF approached, they were killed by Hamas militants there. Of course, it will also mean more losses for the IDF itself, which has been fighting now for 2 years. It relies heavily also on reservists. It would come at a time when the military is to an extent overstretched. It relies on reservists to fill the ranks, and many of them have been serving for days on end, having to leave their jobs and their families. Many are exhausted. We've been hearing these reports repeatedly across, especially over the last few months. And of course, a full military occupation comes with responsibilities for Israel, responsibilities for the 2 million people that live in Gaza, humanitarian responsibilities, food, shelter, and leading experts, meaning leading military and security experts in Israel, say that it is not in Israel's interest to, first of all, occupy Israel, but also to then have to respond to these responsibilities as well.
We'll leave it there, but thank you so much. That's DW's Emily Gordin. Emily, thank you.